Femi Abebefe alongside Michael Lombardi out in the great state of New Jersey. We had a fun first hour. Thank you to our buddy Tim Murray, who joined us at 7:30 West Coast time, 10:30 Eastern. If you missed it, make sure you check it out in podcast form. All you have to do is search the Lombardi Line wherever you get your podcasts. JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel, our VSiN NBA analyst, also co-host of VSiN Primetime, will join us in 30 minutes to break down the 9 games in the association and what is jumped out to him for his betting card here in the NBA. But let's begin hour number 2, Michael, with some interesting news out of New England. Quarterback Mac Jones reportedly on the trade block, and you even mentioned it earlier in hour number 1. Mac Jones is available. If somebody wants to call, he's available. What kind of market is out there for Mac Jones, who's coming off a disappointing season?
You know, I can't think it's a big one. I really can't, because, I mean, if you watch the tape, it's not pretty. You know, I'm sure it's all Bill's fault, because everything that's been going on lately is all Bill's fault. I mean, you know, it's amazing. I think Bill took a vacation on every Super Bowl they won. He must have been absent. There must have been a substitute coach in there. I have not watched 1 minute of the documentary, but I get texts from people all the time, Femi. Have you watched any of it?
I've watched the first 6 episodes. It's interesting. Is how I'll put it. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, that you're being polite. Where's Twitter, Femi, when I need them? Come on now. I mean, interesting is the understatement, right? I mean, like, it's like he had nothing to do with it. All the bad that happened, it was Bill. All the good that happened is we've got plenty of, it wasn't Bill. So, you know, and look, I think to me, when you watch the game and you watch how Mac played, his footwork, his mechanics, you know, were not good. He turned the ball over just tremendously. I mean, the guy's got 36 interceptions in 3 years, Femi. 36. And you say, well, last year was a bad year. No. His first year in the league, he had 13. He had 13 his first year in the league. And so he's averaged 13, you know, he's averaged 36 per game. He's averaged, when you break it down, that's
about 12 per season.
That's 12 per season. Thank you for the math. And so, you know, I you know, now do I think somebody will take it on? I kind of would think somebody might, but I think it's going to be relatively cheap. Look, they got it. He can't come back to the team, right? I mean, the team, we've talked about connectivity. We've talked about all the things, right? You know, and I think to me, it's going to be hard for him to come back to the team. Now, they owe him some guaranteed money still, but his cap number is only at $4.9 million. So could he be a backup somewhere? Sure. If San Francisco, who Kyle Shanahan liked him coming out in the draft, if he loses Darnold, which it sounds like he's going to, would they trade for him for a late pick? Sure, why not? It would get a cheap number. You know, he's got, you know, and for the team that takes him, his cap number would only be $2.7 million because he's got prorated signing bonus there, and he doesn't have any guaranteed money left. So he's an economic value. One of the things I thought the Patriots were willing to do was they thought he was going to have a breakout year this year in terms of the front office. So they thought he was going to be able to really, that's why they didn't bring in competition. That's why they were saving cap room. Remember, this is a team, and you can win a lot of different ways, and they have. But this is a team that over the last 10 years have spent the least amount of money of any NFL team in the league. That's not Michael Lombardi saying it. That's documented, right? And so, you know, they were saving cap room to figuring they had to extend Mac, and then he had the blowout season, and then now there's no sense in saving cap room to sign him.
But he did show, I mean, like the rookie year, obviously a long time ago, 2021. But, I mean, this was a guy that was one of the better rookie. He was probably the best rookie quarterback that season there. Like, so he's shown glimpses of being able to play at the NFL level. Yep. If I was a team, like, it's why I'm so fascinated to see what happens with Cousins and the quarterback dominoes. If you're Minnesota, there's reports out that they could be interested in Darnold or Zach Wilson. I'd rather take a flyer on Mac Jones to start and see if there's something that we can get out of him that was there in 2021 versus going to the Wilsons or the Darnolds of the world. Like, why can't he still be a starter in the NFL when he's shown in the past that he's been able to be a productive starter when he was a rookie?
Well, I think he's got to do a better job of connecting to his teammates, right? And maybe going through what he's going through will humble him. He's a little bit like Russell Wilson. He's got to get humbled, you know, and he's got to have some connectivity. And he's got to be willing to accept responsibility for the mistakes he made. I mean, his second year in the league, it was all Matt Patricia's fault. It wasn't his. It was all Joe Judge's fault. It wasn't his. And he wanted Bill O'Brien. That was his guy to bring in there. They wanted him in there. And so obviously Billy being around there had come back. So look, I think a lot of it is going to be accountability and how does he handle that accountability. But once again, at 2.7, he's cheaper than Mitchell Trubisky, basically, if you look at it as a backup quarterback. Now, you got to go somewhere that somebody buys into him. Kyle wanted to draft him coming out. It kind of fit what he did. Could Kyle fix him? I think when you go back and study, and I have done this, if you go back and study his rookie year, there were a lot of instances where he was making mistakes, but you thought, again, you thought that he would overcome those mistakes with age, with experience. And yet here we are 3 years later, and he's still making them.
Yeah, I mean, who can forget the Germany game when they were taking on the Indianapolis Colts, the red zone interception that,
Germany.
I mean, yeah.
The guy's wide open in the end zone. It's a touchdown. I mean, between the kicker and the quarterback, New England could have won 5 more games, and nobody wants to acknowledge it, but they could have. The kicker killed them. I mean, the kicker missed more kicks than any, and the team that couldn't score, it was a problem.
Thought it was Belichick that killed him. Guess not. Let's move on to
He did.
Yeah, he did. He tore it down. Mac Jones's class.
I mean, it's unbelievable. They went over the 03 and 04 seasons where they were undefeated. They did. Somebody said, I just watched it, and they went over the 03 and 04 season and never mentioned, anything. And then somebody texted me and said, they didn't even mention the game plan against the Rams, the greatest show on turf, and they had a great game plan against them. So, I mean, this is what we're, and I think all you need to know is NFL Films didn't want anything to do with the documentary because they felt like it was slanted in the wrong direction.
Yeah, they skipped right to Spygate.
And I think people are smart enough to make, I mean, you can be a Belichick hater, you can be a Belichick fan, whatever you are, but when you watch something that's overtly slanted against somebody, you can be people are smart enough to see it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's about 17 shots of Robert Kraft in the first 30 minutes of each episode. It's an interesting documentary, like I said earlier. How about Mac Jones's class of 2021 mate Justin Fields right now? His next team, the odds: Falcons are the favorites, plus 140. Bears 2-1 now. Steelers plus 285. Raiders plus 650. Vikings plus 750. And this is one that we talked about on our podcast on Thursday, the GM Shuffle podcast. We encourage everybody subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your pod. Fields, the musical chairs, the seats are starting to fill up, it feels like, and it sounds like he's either going to be in a QB competition or maybe he's a backup in 2024. Like what spot do you think do any of these teams make sense to you? These 5 teams: Falcons, Bears, Steelers, Raiders, Vikings, for Fields?
The Bears don't make sense at all, right? I mean, they're going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
And so the Falcons they don't make sense. I think if the Falcons wanted Fields, they would have gotten it done. The market's so low for him. Look, I think there's 2 distinct things going on here with Justin Fields. There is people that evaluate quarterbacks for a living that work in the NFL that see Fields as a very talented athlete that doesn't throw the ball with consistency. There are people in the media, there are people that do analytical analysis, which I don't know how that can come up with it, that see Fields as an elite player. And there's this huge discourse in between. And when it doesn't occur, everybody attacks the other side. I said, as you know, I said on the pod, I think he should go to a team where he can learn to play a style of play that suits, that's similar, that a player is playing, like Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. But I keep asking people, where's the market? And I haven't heard one. I mean, and now what? Tom Pelissero came out. What did he say today? I mean, everybody's saying there's no market, right? Everybody's saying it, but how come nobody believes it?
It's really interesting. We actually just got breaking news, very timely, that we were discussing Mac Jones in this segment because ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting that the Patriots are finalizing a deal to send Mac Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The trade cannot be processed, is what Schefter reported, until the new league year begins Wednesday and he passes a physical. 2 sides were discussing a 6th-round pick per sources. So Mac Jones, who was actually born in Jacksonville, going to go ahead and
going home. He played high school football in Jacksonville. Going home, yeah. I mean, so now he's behind Trevor Lawrence, and now he's got to be a backup. And so, look, we knew they were going to get rid of him, right? We knew that. And to take him for a 6th-round pick, they were going to get him out the door. I think ultimately that's something that they had to do, and because his connectivity to the team was not very good. So, now he gets to go back to Jacksonville. Maybe Doug Peterson can fix him, and maybe Doug Peterson can endear him to what he wants to do. But somebody, obviously, Trent Baalke liked him coming out in the draft, and he is from Jacksonville. I don't know if that moves the needle at all.
Yeah, I struggle with the fact that like he's a top 32 quarterback. He can start in this league, and I get that he was bad last year, he was bad 2 years ago, and all of that stuff. But I would have been a little bit more patient, maybe if I was in New England, to see maybe if there's one of these teams that gets left without a quarterback once all the dominoes fall, maybe that they would go ahead and give you a 4th or a 5th round pick and not go ahead and take the 6th.
Femi, you're looking at it from outside in. When you're in that building and you realize that there's a lot of conflict between him and the other players within the building, you got to get him out of the building. There's no sense in waiting, right? It's never going to happen there. It could happen somewhere else, but it's not going to happen here. Like, he's kind of, the die has been cast. Yeah. And I think there's been a disconnect. And so because of that, you had to make the move. I mean, look, they're taking it for a 6th. So if they're taking a 6th, what was the real offer? The Jags' 6th-round pick's going to be in the 20s, right? Or the 15 to 20. Yeah. So you're almost in the 7th round. It's really a 7th when you add all the compensatory picks in the first from rounds 3, 4, 5, right? That 6 would be an old-fashioned 7th. There's no market.
Yeah, maybe things were just that bad in New England for Mac Jones, as you're saying there. Not really connected with the team. We'll see if he can go ahead and, rebuild his career now as the backup for Trevor Lawrence with the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, we'll do a little more still got game, or just to name defensive free agent version here next on the Lombardi Line.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Femi Abebefe, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Baseball is back, and what better way to lead off with the grapefruit and cactus leagues than with the VSiN free MLB betting primer. This primer will tell you how to bet on spring training and continue all season long with our VSiN Experts World Series futures analysis. Our free MLB betting primer has basic baseball betting advice for those new to betting MLB, plus a breakdown on how to use sabermetrics for more data-driven bettors to make this your best season yet. Bet the MLB smarter this year. VSiN.com/guide for our MLB betting primer. That's VSIN.com/guide. Welcome back. This is the Lombardi Line here on the DraftKings Network. Femi Abebefe, Michael Lombardi. Last segment, we were reacting to the breaking news. Mac Jones, Patriots quarterback, being sent to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. Mac Jones will now back up his class of 2021 mate, Trevor Lawrence. And how about this class of 2021, which is kind of like sort of the reminder for this year when you're talking about these quarterbacks in this draft with Williams and May and Daniels and Penix and Nix. All these guys we're all excited about. Everyone was excited about these guys back in 2021. Lawrence is coming off of a down year, I think, for most people. We saw Zach Wilson now been given permission to seek a trade, a.k.a. he's probably getting cut. Trey Lance has already been traded to the Dallas Cowboys last summer. Justin Fields is on the trade block. Mac Jones just got traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. How quickly guys can fall off in this league, man. This is a humbling sport.
Well, look, Trey Lance got sent for a 4th-round pick, right? Yeah. And really never started very many games. Mac Jones starts 42 games, and he got sent for a 6th-round pick. Mac Jones has won 18 games. Justin Fields has started 40 games, has won 10. When you compare their numbers, obviously Fields is significantly different in terms of running the football. But when you compare their numbers, they're kind of similar in quarterback rating. One guy, Mac Jones, is at 85.8. Justin Fields is at 82, but the difference is passing. I mean, Mac Jones has thrown for 2,300 more yards than Justin Fields has. There lies the problem. So this market for Fields is going to be tied to this market that we're seeing. Zach Wilson has to get cut. It's going to be really no trade market for Zach. I can't believe it, because you're assuming his guarantees, right? You're going to take on his guarantees. Fields has got a significant cap number. He was the 11th pick overall in the draft, where Mac was 16. Jacksonville's only going to take on 2.2 or 2.7 of his money. So where does Fields fit into this, right? Where does Fields fit in? Would I rather work with Fields than Mac? Yeah, I think I would at this point, because at least Fields can make some plays with his feet. But as the backup quarterback, now is your offense conducive to what Fields can do, or do you have to change offenses? See, that's the hard part. Whereas, with Mac Jones, maybe he can go in and execute the same offense Trevor Lawrence operates in.
Well, that's why on the podcast we had on Thursday, the GM Shuffle, you were mentioning the Philadelphia Eagles with Justin Fields. They're like, hey, like you wouldn't really have to change everything. You can just run that 6-back offense behind Jalen Hurts for just in case if Hurts were to go down with an injury, you can just plug Justin Fields into that. Not to say that they're the same player, but at least they have similarities in terms of the movement skills and athletic ability.
No question. And that's what you want with your backup. You want somebody who doesn't get a lot of reps, right, that you could just put into the game and run the offense. Now, you know you're going to have to cut back on what you want to run because you're not getting the guy any reps, right? So here's what we're going to do. Here's our package for you if you play this week. Okay, and that's what you do. So that would fit Fields well in Philadelphia. Now, I'm sure there's probably somebody else that could work it out as well. But when we put that graphic up there, why would the Raiders be on one of the top 5 teams? We know Luke Getsy was there in Chicago. He knows them better than anybody. If the Raiders were in this, we would have heard the Raiders are in this, right? We haven't heard anything from the Raiders on this, right? The Raiders are talking about college guys. You know, I think the guy who's hotter than Justin Fields is Jacoby Brissett. I think Jacoby Brissett has looked at as a, you know, I think New England strongly after Jacoby Brissett. I think Atlanta's trying to hold off on getting Jacoby Brissett to hold off on a deal until they see what happens with Kirk Cousins. So there's a lot of that maneuvering. I think he's more viewed as somebody who could come in and be a bridge quarterback than Justin Fields.
Oh, that's interesting. Jacoby Brissett, who he started a handful of games, and he's been solid when he's played. I thought he was pretty solid.
In New England, I think the biggest mistake New England made last year is they should have brought Jacoby Brissett in to compete with him. They should have brought Jacoby Brissett in and let him compete with Mac Jones. Because one thing about Jacoby Brissett now, and we drafted him when I was there, this is not a good kid. This is an elite kid. This is somebody whose teammates love him. And when he first came out, he struggled to throw the ball with great anticipation. He was a little bit like Jalen Hurts. He had to see the guy open to throw it. And then as he's gone on in his career, he's gotten better in that area. Look what he did for Washington and when he came in and had to play a little bit, right? He lifted him up and he got rid of the football, didn't take as many sacks. I'll tell you the other guy that I think is getting overlooked a little bit here, and partly because of what they did to him last year. I'm not sure Sam Howell's a bust. I'm really not. I know they're talking about trading him, and if, you know, I don't know what they would trade him for. But if I were on it, I mean, I think Sam Howell showed that he's got skills. Now, you know, he got the crap beat out of him. He got hit way too much, right? He got, you know, it was all over the field, you know, and they're throwing it over 600 times, you know, and they didn't protect him at all. They've cut, 3 of the linemen that were trying to protect him already.
Yeah, no, Sam Howell, an interesting player, and like when he was protected, he showed ability to at least throw the football. He made some mistakes, but a lot of young quarterbacks make mistakes. But that's a guy that maybe you could kick the tires on. There's just so many of these options to where, like when I hear the Wilson Darnold stuff, I'm like, why go down that path when we've seen that? There's all these other guys that you can maybe go ahead and.
Well, I think Wilson Darnold are separate, Femi. I don't think you can lump them together. Wilson's in the same category as Fields and Mac Jones. If anybody signs him, they're not saying you're a starter. I think people look at Sam Darnold and say, okay, he can be the Baker Mayfield of this class. Now, we would have said the same thing about Baker Mayfield at this time last year. Sure. I'm still not over the fence on Baker Mayfield, but I think Darnold's in a separate category. Zach Wilson is, you know, does he love the game of football? I don't know. Will he be willing to work hard at the game of football? I don't know. You know, there's some questions about him in terms of the intangibles. If you go work him out, great arm, he's got the ability to make all the throws, but it doesn't transpose itself on Sunday. So, you know, are you giving that guy your starting quarterback job? No, I don't think so. If Minnesota went to Darnold, Kevin O'Connell would be saying, look, I'm going to refurbish his career. We got a great receiver. Hopefully, you know, we'll get guys back healthy. TJ Hawkinson coming off the ACL, get him healthy, and we'll make Sam a better player. We'll, you know, do that. Again, same thing they said in Tampa. I wasn't even sure that Baker Mayfield could win the starting job down there. I thought, you know, that maybe he would have a hard time. I thought Kyle Trask could win it.
Yeah, we had those discussions in August. Like I have boots on the ground in Tampa. They were telling me, they said, if he keeps turning the ball over in practice, this could be Kyle Trask's job. And then Mayfield able to fix those issues, 28 touchdowns, 4,000 passing yards later, and now in line for a big contract here once the new league year begins on Wednesday. How about some other, because Justin Fields is the topic of conversation here for this class of 2021. Once again, Falcons are the favorites, plus 140. Bears are 2-1, but they're drafting the quarterback first overall. Steelers plus 285, Raiders plus 650, Vikings plus 750. The team that Justin Fields will play for.
I don't think there's a team up there.
Okay, that's the question I wanted to ask.
I don't think there's a team up there. I think it's a little bit like The Godfather 3. Our true enemy is yet to reveal himself. I don't think the team that's going to sign him is up there on that list.
Gotcha.
I really don't. I mean, I could see it being the Steelers, but again, right, the Steelers, I mean, Fields' cap number is significant, right? I mean, his cap number is $11 million the last time. I think his cap number is $11 million if you take Justin Fields on. No, excuse me. No, his cap number is he's only at 3.2. So you could take him on. It's the fifth year you would have to decline the option on. So Fields is at 1.6 plus a roster bonus at 1.6. So he's basically at 3.2 million.
Yeah. But we've said in the past, though, if you're declining that fifth-year option, it's just a one-year deal. How much are you giving up for a one-year rental sort of a situation, at least on the surface of it? You're not giving up a whole lot. We just see Mac Jones now go for a 6th-round pick. This pretty much solidifies that it's going to be a day 3 pick for Justin Fields. Is that the proper takeaway from what we've seen here with this Mac Jones trade?
I mean, okay, just take yourself away from what the media says. But if you're a general manager in the league, why are you paying more for Fields than what Mac Jones got? What we saw Trey Lance go for, right? Like you could say, well, Alex Smith was 38 and 36 as a starter. Like he won a lot of games. I mean, Mac Jones won 18 games in his career. Justin Fields has won 10. However you want to justify it. So the market has declared itself. If you pay outside of the market, that's on you. That's on you. That is on you. That's a mistake by the team. And maybe Ryan Poles is a good enough talker and can convince somebody that, there's enough action on him that there's going to be another player involved.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Poles said that they're going to remain patient on this after at the combine said, hey, we want to get this done yesterday. And now we're going to remain patient for a Justin Fields trade situation, which I'm sure will come up at some point. I would anticipate it has to happen during this free agency period. We're not going to go up to the draft and Fields is still on the Chicago Bears roster. Something has to get done in these next at least couple of weeks.
They promised the kid they wouldn't do that, right? They promised the kid they wouldn't do that.
See if they fulfill that promise coming up here over these next week or so. All right, Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN NBA analyst, joins us next to break down the association on the Lombardi Line.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Femi Abebefe, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Not a registered VSiN.com user yet? Well, you should fix that right now because we're giving out some VSiN Pro access to everything through the NCAA Championship Week leading up to Selection Sunday. Visit VSiN.com/Champ Week. Get instant access. You're going to get the daily best bets, the betting splits, the premium analysis, the 24/7 video access, and the upcoming NCAA Tournament betting primer. Don't miss out on this VSiN Pro free preview to help you bet the tournament smarter. Create your free account, VSiN.com/Champ Week, now through March 17th. That's VSIN.com/Champ Week. This is the Lombardi Line, hanging out with you guys on the DraftKings Network. Femi Abebefe, Michael Lombardi, and joining us now, co-host of VSiN Primetime, which you can check out Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 Eastern. The one and only Jonathan Von Tobel joining us on the Progressive Guest Line, our VSiN Senior NBA Analyst. JVT, hope all is well. The Milwaukee Bucks are taking on the Los Angeles Clippers later on this afternoon. Have the Bucks figured things out post All-Star break with Doc Rivers? Because it feels like they're playing much better basketball, despite, of course, losing to the Lakers the other night.
Yeah, that's the big caveat, right? Everything was going well, and then all of a sudden you put up a dud against the Lakers. And, it was pointed out by a lot of smart people up on social media. When you look at that final bucket for D'Angelo Russell, where there's a miscommunication, right, defensively on a switch, where Brook Lopez wants to come out onto that switch, and Damian Lillard calls him off, but then he plays off of D'Angelo Russell, which puts him on his right hip. It's exactly exactly where he wants them, and then boom, it leads to a bucket that ultimately leads to a win. Look, you're 2 coaches in. You're right. We're 60-ish games in. These things shouldn't really happen. So I do think they're getting better. I still think in any given series they're going to be a threat. We have seen, although they did win and cover yesterday, Boston hit some shaky ground. It's hard to be consistently great over 82 games. But Femi, I'm kind of buying in, but you still want to see more, I think. So we'll see what happens today. The Clippers are in a really good rest situation. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden were questionable yesterday. All 3 of them ended up playing. This is part of a stretch, guys, where the Clippers, this is going to be the second game. They're playing 5 games in 7 nights. This is the second of those 5. And a lot of these are against Western Conference opponents. They have New Orleans. They have Minnesota amongst this stretch. These are very important games. It'll be very interesting to see what the Clippers do today. And if they play everybody, it'll be a good litmus test for the Bucks in this spot. But Femi, to your overall question, I think you're starting to see signs, but I think it's fair to ask if you want to see a little bit more from them.
Do you can they JVT? I mean, just watching Boston, I know they kind of were going to roll and then they got beat. But can they match up to Boston? I mean, Boston's defense, they give up 112 points a game. I mean, Milwaukee still defensively is struggling. I mean, can you see Boston losing a series to them?
I mean, I could see it because we've seen them lose lesser series, right, Michael? Like, we've seen Boston kind of disappoint us before. And, there's no maybe shame in losing to Miami last year, but you shouldn't be losing the way that you did in terms of falling down 3-0 in that series and needing to claw your way back. You were 2 minutes away from being up 3-1 in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. You end up losing that series. So we've seen this team kind of fail in situations we've expected them to succeed. So I wouldn't say you can't see it happening, but to your overall point, Boston has so much depth. Like there's so much there that they can do. They're so big. They're switchable. They're an elite shooting team. They can go after the shoddy perimeter defense of the Milwaukee Bucks. They can defend at a very high level the Milwaukee Bucks because they have the bodies to do it. So I would say, like right now, this team is the rightful favorite to win the Eastern Conference. The degree to which they are favored is something I would quibble with, right? If Femi's sitting at Circa right now, you can find a yes-no market and bet a cheap no price on Boston to win the East. I would recommend that because I think the probabilities are a little too high by the betting market standards. But I do think overall, what we have seen up to this point of the year, barring your big guy coming back, Joel Embiid, and that team going on a run, it does seem that it is setting up for Boston to come out of the Eastern Conference.
we heard that scoff there, Michael. We heard the
JVT,
scoff.
Come on.
Hey, I'm just saying, like that's
the unders.
Well, that's the whole point here is
coming.
just like it's him coming back is a question. It's just adding to the pile of teams that could potentially beat Boston is all I'm saying. Like Joel Embiid makes your team better. Tyrese Maxey makes your team better. At this point right now, though, the way the Eastern Conference is shaking out, it does seem obviously very likely that it is going to be Boston's to get out of there. Almost like it seemed very likely and ultimately happened that San Francisco is going to make it out of the NFC.
Right now,
Did you see this Oklahoma Thunder playing as well as they play right now? Did you visualize that? I mean, they've got to be ahead of schedule, right, for where they are and to all the assets that they still have collected?
Oh, yeah, like at least to this degree. I think a lot of people expected, myself included, them to be a playoff team, right? Like the natural progression is, okay, cool, you finally made it to the play-in, you didn't make it out. All right, now let's see you compete for that 6-5 spot, not the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. This has been insane. I think the degree of the success is somewhat surprising, Michael. Not that they're a playoff team, but that they're 44-19, a half game ahead of the 2 teams behind them in the race for the Western Conference as number 1 overall seed, and owning some really solid tiebreakers, including that of which they own against the Los Angeles Clippers. So, no, I think that this has been surprising how good they are. Now, we have seen a lot of times before, right? Regular season success is a little bit different than postseason success. In a best-of-7 series, this team is still very small when it comes to attacking the glass. And some of these big teams, Minnesota, Denver, you're going to have some trouble keeping them off the glass. You're going to have a lot of one-and-done possessions. You're going to give up some second-chance opportunities. Can you sustain that? And guys, they've even given word to that. Remember the other night against Phoenix where Yusuf Nurkic had 30 million rebounds, and Mark Daigneault came out and said, yeah, look, like we've got to pick where we're going to succeed and where we're going to fail. And we feel like that's a fine trade-off. We will give up a bunch of rebounds in order to be successful the way that we are. In the best-of-7 series, though, how does that play out when you're playing a Denver Nuggets or whoever it is? So I think, Michael, the degree of the success is awesome. But given just the physical shortcomings of the roster, I think that's where people still have the questions of, can they make it out of multiple best-of-7 series to an NBA Finals? And when you get there, can you win that? And I think that's where ultimately the team may fall short.
We're hanging out with Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN senior NBA analyst, also co-host of the VSiN Primetime here on the Progressive Guest Line. Well, let's have the conversation about OKC then. Thunder, the 1 seed. Let's say they get the 1 seed and they get the 8 seed Los Angeles Lakers. Do you like OKC based on what you've seen throughout the regular season? Would you like them to advance, or is the Lakers' size, would that be too much for them from a matchup standpoint against OKC?
Yeah, based on what we've seen, it would probably be, I hate to say it, but a pretty good matchup for the Lakers, right? The Lakers are 3-1. Excuse me, are they 3-1? Yeah, I think they're 3-1 against the Thunder this year. And you've seen the fact that they have really wrecked this team on the glass. Like the size has been a really big problem for them. Now, like, the last game when D'Angelo Russell gets insanely hot and is nailing contested threes, is that going to be sustainable? Probably not. But when you're talking about a front court of Anthony Davis and LeBron James and the ability to not only crush the glass, but clog up the paint, not allow that, to have the ability there to stymie up the middle of the floor, I think that's going to be a problem here for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's going to be a pretty tough fought series. And then, of course, you get to the elusive that everybody likes to talk about, Femi, right? The experience. Mm-hmm. The LeBron James been there, and he's won multiple playoff series, won multiple finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder have not. You can say the same thing if it's a 1A matchup against the Golden State Warriors, although there's not that physical mismatch there if it's Golden State when you get into a best-of-7 series. So I would think that in that series, it would be very tempting to not look at the Los Angeles Lakers, but again, bringing it back to our realm, it's going to be very interesting to see where the market prices that series, right, when they play with one another, because the market might over-account for the fact that Los Angeles has some size, and in some reverse psychology, backwards thinking, you might get some value on OKC. So I'd be fascinated to see what the market does with a series like that, because there is a mismatch there for the Lakers to exploit, and we saw them do it multiple times, right? They got a very good draw for themselves last year, made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals because they took advantage of it, and this would be the start of a good draw if they can get Oklahoma City, because that's the team they match up best with.
I know you're doing some work on the College Guide and get ready for the tournament, and you're focused on the Mountain West. Can UNLV beat San Diego State to win the Mountain West?
I mean, I think they can. They got to do this in this first round, so they're going to be the 4-5 matchup. We obviously saw them do it, Michael. The problem is first off, and San Diego State, does look beatable. All these teams in the Mountain West at this point look beatable, and UNLV has done a really good job in getting better. Last night, there was a really bad spot for them, right? You slay the Dragon against San Diego State, then you go on the road in a rivalry spot. You end up losing that game. But they're so good. They're solid. They're switchable. Their front court is very nice. They have two different dynamic pieces. You have Caleb Boone, his twin brother Keelan. Both of them are different. Caleb posts up. Keelan's a stretch guy. You've got different guys like Rob Whaley who can work in the low post. You've got one of the best guards in the Mountain West, indeed, on Thomas Jr. I think they can. I think they can beat San Diego State. I think they can win the Mountain West just because, Michael, you take all 7 of these teams, right, from Utah State down and throw them in a hat and you pull one out. Like, these are all teams that are very, very close to one another. So I think there's 7 teams that legitimately win the Mountain West, and UNLV is perfectly among them just because we have seen them, right? They beat New Mexico on the road. They competed with Colorado State on the road to beat them at home. They beat Boise State on the road. They beat San Diego State. They have beat the big teams here in this conference. And I think absolutely, and I haven't looked at the price yet. I was going to go through right now because I was going through some Max stuff right now. But I think that if you look at it from a fair price perspective, UNLV is definitely going to be competitive. But I would warn anybody really quickly, the Thomas and Mack is not the home court advantage that many might think it is as we head into tournament time. It's played there for a while, and UNLV hasn't had success in the Mountain West tournament. But I think from a skill set standpoint, they're very, very live.
Yeah, the market has it priced how you say it, like 7 teams right now. The favorite, San Diego State at plus 260 over at DraftKings. The 7th team is Colorado State at plus 750. So everyone's kind of compressed right there. And maybe just taking Colorado State is if everyone's all equal, maybe just take the longest odds right now at plus 750 with the Rams to win the Mountain West. Can't wait for that tournament that's going to get going a little bit later on this week here in Las Vegas. JVT, thanks as always, buddy, joining us here on the Progressive
JVT.
Guest
Appreciate
Line.
You.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Good stuff to check out all of his work over on VSiN.com. Also, VSiN Primetime, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 Eastern Time with our buddy Tim Murray. All right, on the other side, we'll wrap up the show with Still Got Game, or just to name the defensive version here on the Lombardi Line. Stick with us. It's a Sunday. We're having a lot of fun.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Femi Abebefe, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This week on DraftKings Sportsbook, new customers can deposit $5 and get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Download the app and use promo code VSiN when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Welcome back to the final segment of the Lombardi Line here on the DraftKings Network. Femi Abebefe, Michael Lombardi. Thank you to Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN NBA analyst, joined us in the last segment. And JVT, the discussion with him leads us to our pro tip here for the day. The NBA playoffs it's a different sport, a different season than what you see in the regular season. Don't overvalue some of those teams at the top of the standings in their conference, or undervalue, vice versa, the lower seeded teams. As we saw a year ago, Miami, the 8th seed, going all the way to the NBA Finals.
And they call the game different too, right? Yep. I mean, we see it a more physical game. You know, there's a lot more leeway in terms of going to the free throw line. You've got to adjust it. Look, I think the Thunder are a great team, but like we talked about in the last block, they go against the Lakers, who are experienced, have been there with two great players, assuming they're healthy. That's always a challenge.
Yeah, that's the caveat with the Lakers, assuming they're healthy with Anthony Davis and LeBron James at age 39. But if they're healthy, that's a matchup that the Thunder do not want to see based on what those teams have done in the regular season whenever they've matched up here. But before we wrap things up here, wanted to get in the still got game or just named defensive free agent version here, because the legal tampering period begins noon Eastern tomorrow, 9 o'clock West Coast time. We're going to start to see some of these guys changing teams, and we'll start with Dallas Cowboys cornerback Stephon Gilmore. 2 interceptions this past season, a forced fumble, 68 tackles, 13 passes defended. I thought he played pretty well. Still got game or just a name, Stephon Gilmore?
I think he's just a name, Femi. I think he knows he can't run to the level he used to, right? And when corners know that, they become a little softer, right? They know they can't take it down the field. They're worried about getting beat on top. And so I think he's experienced. I think he can help contribute to a team. There's no question he did it last year for Dallas. But in terms of being the elite corner, the defensive player of the year, those days are gone. He's still not the same. He's not that guy. Can he be effective? Sure. But it's all relative, and I think you'll see that in the money that gets presented to him. I think he's going to get a second-level type of – I don't think he's going to be one of the first names out of free agency.
Yeah, no, you could tell definitely. Like when he was cornerback 2 early in the season, it's like, okay, they got something. Now he got moved to cornerback 1 when Trayvon Diggs suffered the ACL injury in practice. They had to do a little bit of adjusting on the back end defensively for that Dallas Cowboys defense. All right, Chase Young traded from the Commanders to the Niners at midseason last year. Interesting playoff run for old Chase Young there. 7.5 sacks the season, 7 tackles for loss, 15 quarterback hits. Still got game or just a name?
My question is, when did he have game? I've never seen the game. I'm waiting for the game. I know he's the second pick overall. You get labeled as having game. But I think he's in. I'm sure somebody's going to take a chance on him because he was the second pick overall. But here's what I will say. If you don't dominate and take the game over in San Francisco with that front that they have, and you continue to run by the passer. Now, he played better in the Super Bowl. Give him credit for that. But for me, I think this is going to be one of those guys that will not move the needle and will not move the power ranking of the team that signs him, because I just don't see him being a difference maker when it comes to rushing the passer. I mean, Bryce Huff from the Jets is a better rusher than Chase Young.
Yeah. He wasn't the second overall pick, though, so nobody wants to give Bryce Huff the parade there. Chase Young, I guess he would argue he was the defensive rookie of the year back in 2020, 7.5 sacks that season. He matched that once again this year, but it's definitely more name than game. Chase Young there entering his age 25 season. All right, Levante David, the ageless wonder. 134 tackles this past season, 17 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits, 4.5 sacks, even had a forced fumble. Still got game or just a name?
I think he's still got game. I think he's got leadership. He still can play in the passing game. You know, I think he certainly can make plays. I think he still has game. I think he helps the team become a better team. So I would say still got game here. And, you know, I think he'll certainly help whatever team he goes to. If he stays there, it will be good.
This next one is really interesting because I think if you had asked me this last year, this time, I would have said just a name. Yeah. But after the season that he had, being signed in August, Jadeveon Clowney, 9.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 19 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, 5 passes defended. Still got game or just a name?
I thought this was one of his best years, including when he was healthy. I don't know what happened to him, whether he got, rehabbed and is able to help his knee, his shoulder, because he's had a multitude of injuries, right? But he played really well. And I've never been a fan of Clowney in terms of because he's had so many injuries. But this year he played really effectively for them. And I think he's still got game. Now, I think a lot of this is going to come down to the medical, right? It's going to come down to how can he pass your physical? Can he handle all that stuff? I don't know. But to me, can it last for more than 2 years? I doubt it. I think it's a short-term, still got game. But the way he played last year is an indication that he has gas left in that tank.
9.5 sacks matches his career high that he had back in 2017 with the Houston Texans. And they signed the guy.
Best year I think he's had. Yeah, I mean, they got him off the street. I mean, Van Noy had 9 sacks too. They got 2 guys that got 18 sacks off the street. So, I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting if Seattle goes after him. It's going to be money. I think he's going to get paid though, Femi. I mean, I think and Cleveland probably was watching him saying, darn. Now, he played better for Cleveland too, in fairness.
Yep.
But then, he didn't play to the level he played with Baltimore.
Yeah, he played the most games he's played in his career this past season there. Maybe he was fresh. Maybe he just needs to just jump in when training camp gets going on, and he'll play well. But Clowney had a really good season. Fletcher Cox, though, the defensive tackle, one of the leaders of the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off a 5-sack season, 3 tackles for loss, 33 tackles, 17 quarterback hits. Still got game or just a name?
Just a name right now. I mean, that's one of the most disappointing things about the Eagles' second half of the season. Their defensive tackle position, which was, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, right? You got all Milton. They put Milton Johnson inside. Have all these guys in there, and you think, they should take over games. They couldn't. They had a hard time stopping the run. I mean, Fletcher has not been the same player the last couple of years. That doesn't mean he still can't be a viable player within a rotation. The bigger issue was that Carter and Davis weren't in shape, and as the year went on, they got further and further out of shape. I think Cox could help a team, but on a limited role basis, and I think that's the issue.
Maybe the Eagles bring it back. They brought back Brandon Graham for the season. The BG, one of their leaders as well.
I think they brought back Graham. I think Graham gives them some stability in that room. They brought him back leadership, give him some reps, help some of the young guys if they sign Bryce Huff, which I think they will. If they sign some of these guys, they'll help them. It gives them that leadership because Riddick is going to be gone, Sweat's going to be gone, and they need somebody in the room to kind of give them some help in terms of a leadership basis.
He'll certainly be the voice to do that. Speaking of leadership, Seattle Seahawks linebacker Bobby Wagner, 183 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits, 3.5 sacks, 3 passes defended. Still got game or just a name?
I think he's between it. I didn't think he was playing well in Seattle when he went to the Rams. And then last year I thought he really played well. He did 183 tackles, remarkable, right? 11 for loss. He was good on all the levels. Now, he lacks some speed. And remember this, it's so important. When your mic's slow, your defense is slow. And I think, to me, he limits them a little bit. But I think he'll be good for them because they need a bridge gap. Now, he's a free agent. I don't know how much he's going to get in the open market. But I think he still has some game left. I would put him in the some game category.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot for Seattle. Bobby Wagner, free agent. Jordan Brooks, a free agent as well. We'll see what they do now with Mike McDonald, the new head coach, on that second level of the defense.
It's funny. Patrick Queen's out there, right? So He had Patrick Queen. One thing about their defense, it got better with Rohan Smith and with Queen. I mean, he made Queen better, right? And I think when you look at Baltimore's defense, it changed because of their inside play because they could really run inside out.
Last one here, America's favorite edge safety, Jamal Adams, played in 9 games, no interceptions, 2 passes.
You know my answer.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm chuckling. Still got game or just a name?
I never saw him have game. I mean, he blitzed against smaller guys, and that's what he did. He's unfortunately for him, he's in a position that we don't have anymore in the National Football League, which is a box safety. And the issue is he can't cover anybody. Now, could he play linebacker? I don't know. Could he play sub linebacker? When Kyle Hamilton came out, I wasn't sure, wasn't a fan of Kyle Hamilton. I'll be honest here, obviously was wrong. But Kyle Hamilton's not a deep safety. He's got to play this role that they invented for him in Baltimore, which highlights his skill. Around the box, instinctive, a big guy, playing kind of a quasi-linebacker safety. But when Hamilton has to go deep part of the field, that's not as good. He's not as effective there. Adams can't play deep part of the field at all. So that makes it very difficult to maneuver around. My sense of it is I think he's going to have a hard time. He has a high opinion of himself. I think he's going to have a hard time taking less money.
His nickname is Prez. How could you not have a high opinion of yourself? That does it for us here on the Lombardi Line. For Michael Lombardi, for our producer Elliot Bowman, and the entire crew behind the glass, we wish you guys all the best luck with the bets. Coming up next, The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Somich here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.